This video contains pixelated depictions of blood and gore, occasionally flickering lights, as well as spoilers for Doom 1. Duh. Yes, by popular demand, I'm making another one of these. For those out of the loop, I once released a video in which I analyzed Doom 2's stages and tried to explain what everything was supposed to represent. And this video is the sequel to the sequel. I'm aware for confusing the sounds. However, this time we are going to be doing things a bit differently. First, I will split up the video into 3 parts, one for each episode. This gives me more time to work on the details. Just like with the actual game, the first video is free and you can share it with anyone. The other 2 videos, however, are also going to be free. Secondly, this is the first time we can see what these levels look like on the intermission screen. A lot of episode 1 stages are generic tech bases, where half the areas are generic computer rooms and the other half are generic waste pits. So to avoid repeating myself, I'll instead try to see which parts of these levels represent what on the map screen. Before we begin, if you want to support this series, then please consider leaving a like, a comment, subscribing to my channel, or even donating to my Patreon. But now, let's head into Doom's first level ever. Our journey begins in Hangar, which actually lives up to its name. We start out in the lobby with its comfy carpets on the floor and monitors above to keep track of the flight plans. Just like in Entryway from Doom 2, it's easy to imagine some benches along the sides. However, these days the hangar has fallen into disuse and is mostly used to store waste barrels. Right next to it is the flight tower, where employees can keep lookout for arriving and departing spaceships. Interestingly, it seems the door was already pried open earlier, as indicated by the door tracks along the sides. There's even a button that opens the emergency exit both to the lobby and to the adjacent control center. The room with the zigzag floor obviously isn't supposed to look like that. Either through battle or disrepair, the floor has sunk into the hazardous waste below. The balcony with the imps is also unstable rubble, crashing down by itself after a while. The secret behind it is in even worse shape. The ceiling's rough texture indicates that it caved in slightly. Worse still, the tunnel above has irregular sides and was most likely caused by an explosion or earthquake. I'm unsure what the one-way window represents though, maybe you do. However, the tunnel that leads outside is intentional and is used to access the interior landing pad. The hole in the middle also has some uneven edges, which means it was an accident as well. Maybe a plane crashed into the ground, filling the crater with its fuel. The cargo inside then floated to the top, indicated by the blue armor. Finally, the exit room is the employee entrance, or maybe a shipping bay. Perhaps these areas behind the fences are cargo lifts that are permanently raised. This map is where we can also notice an abundance of marine corpses. The story in the manual states that DoomGuy was left behind while everyone else stormed the building. It didn't end well, which we can clearly see here. These marines were also the ones to leave all the items behind that are now scattered everywhere. Now, what does it look like on the map? Interestingly, the building is flipped horizontally here, since the flight tower needs to be on the left. The courtyard also seems to have a roof, which it doesn't in the actual level. However, it can probably open up to let spacecraft in and out. On the other end, we can see a landing pad that doesn't actually appear on the stage. Well, if we take a look at the overview, it would have been beyond the zigzag room. Remember how the secret area was caved in? The rubble must have blocked off the exit. The menu mentions DoomGuy immediately wanting to leave the planet, so he was probably hoping to find a ship on the pad. After seeing that it was impossible to get to it, he then decided to check out the other bases instead. And his first stop is Nuclear Plant, which he enters via the main lobby. This section isn't part of the actual plant yet, which is locked off by the red door. However, by heading up the stairs, we get to a security office where keycard gives us access. Now, in the main facility, we can already see the nuclear part of the name in action, as waste is already being stored here. Off to the side is a control and server room, which has been cast in darkness after the power went out. Destructive as ever, DoomGuy can simply shoot the computer panels to access the chainsaw secret. the pillar that the chainsaw rests on is probably a piston or something and has been raised for maintenance. Pushing the button returns it to its original position, which leads to the sewage getting pumped out. And what's the chainsaw for? Well, either it was put there as a joke, or they used it to cut open part of the machine. If there's no circular saw at hand, it'll have to do. Heading back outside, we can see a walkway over more toxic sludge, which could be the spent fuel room. The lift then takes us down to the generator, shown by the pipes along the walls. As this place is highly secure, you only gain access from outside by having someone open the doors from the inside. This then leads us to the exit, likely another employee entrance. Looking at the map screen, we can tell that this nuclear plant is unlike any from Earth. There's no cooling towers or containment buildings, likely because creating nuclear energy works much differently on Mars, especially if you have no water source. There is a pool of sorts on the left side, which could be where they get the water from, or it's just for storing waste. This pool is just out of view of the chainsaw room, which is located in the upper left corner. On the other side of the building is what looks like pipes. However, I interpret it as the security office, the pipes actually being the two stairwells leading up to it. Something similar can be seen at the top, but by looking at the overview, that seems to instead be the exit. And said exit can take us to the next level, namely Toxin Refinery, which also lives up to its name right away by having a massive pool of toxic goo at the start. Since this place is so close to the nuclear plant, this has to be where all the waste is pumped to process it. And we can see a lot of evidence for that, as there's plenty rooms where it's being stored. One of them has a donut-shaped walkway to observe the refinement process below. This area is connected to a small control room where the electronics are failing, lights blinking and sparking out of the air. As you pick up the key, they give out entirely, and imps claw their way out of the supply closet. Connected to the main computer room is a waste tunnel, where you can activate the bridge that extends across the pit from the beginning. This gives you access to the inners of the machine, where lots of pipes, cables and other electronics are hard at work to refine the waste. It even contains the secret exit, which is the entrance for maintenance workers. This machine is powered by the generator room on the right side of the level. The tech pillars are likely turbines that create energy for the whole facility. Or rather, they would, but the power is almost completely out, with only red warning lights flashing in the dark. This blackout probably has something to do with the massive pit of waste in the room before this one. As the edges are very uneven, I assume that it was created on accident, perhaps by a sinkhole. The last two areas are the secret storage room, where important supplies are kept, and the observation deck above that leads to the exit. Much like nuclear plant, the icon on the map tells us very little, as everything seems to be located inside the giant Smarty. Though, there's these yellow lines on the right side. I think they're meant to be the windows of the storage room, since that's the only place that actually looks outside. On to the next map, Command Control, which doesn't live up to its name. It mainly consists of empty rooms and halls that are sometimes filled with computer panels. However, there's some interesting landmarks, like the nice courtyard at the beginning, which connects to a room with a nuclear river. This one is actually man-made, however, as indicated by the warning signs on the walls. I think it's meant to be the facility's sewer system where all these waste barrels get dumped. There's even a little bit of environmental storytelling going on in the secret room. In it, you can find plenty of supplies, plus 2 marines. One dead, one turned into a zombie. I theorized that these two were the last of the squad who decided to bunker down in the sewers. Unfortunately, one of them turned into a zombie who then killed and ate the other. It's possible that this soul sphere acts as the dead marine's soul, calling out for anyone to come down there and help their friend pass on. Kinda sad. The circular room in the middle of the map contains what seems like a giant machine that pumps all the waste into the sewers below. Next to it is a hallway leading to a server room that totally doesn't contain a hook cross on one side and to the ventilation system on the other. Said vents are now absolutely crawling with monsters similar to the Alien movies. This is also the only way you can raise the bridge to the exit, which was likely lowered to prevent the demons from spreading further. A futile attempt that only hinders you, but an attempt nonetheless. At first, the map screen made absolutely no sense to me, as there are no 2 towers anywhere in the level. But after looking at the overview, I noticed that the stage is divided into two sections that are only connected by the middle. So each half is represented by one of the towers on the map screen. Like Hangar, it's flipped again, with the exit half being higher up than the courtyard half. The middle even has this orange pipe going through it, which could very well be the machine with the imps inside. But now we travel to the next location, Phobos Lab, and here's where it gets really interesting. Right at the beginning, you notice something is wrong. The bridge that's supposed to go over the pit is out. And not just this one, but many others too. The one that leads towards the yellow key, one in the middle courtyard, and one in the room with the yellow door. It's possible that the place is falling apart. The hallway to one of the secrets has collapsed, so now it's only accessible via the waste pit. In the yellow door room, the pipes at the switch collapse when you try to activate it. Even the way to the items outside is caved in, forcing you to dig your way through the rubble. Why is it all falling apart though? I doubt the place is already showing its age, so it's gotta be from battles. But haven't you noticed something peculiar? Where's the corpses? The previous levels were all full of dead marines, but there's not even a single drop of blood anywhere. And while we're noticing things, what's this candelabra doing here on a Martian base? Or more importantly, a giant pentagram hidden away in a dark room. How come it teleports you, a mechanic that hasn't been used once up until this point? I mean, isn't it obvious? This is how the monsters got here. They were summoned. But who made it then? It couldn't have been the demons, because if they were already here, then they wouldn't need it. It had to have been someone on the inside. Someone who was welcoming the invasion, just like in Doom 3. And it's no wonder there's no corpses, as nobody from the outside actually made it here alive. Well, nobody, except you. And that's a problem. These weren't accidents. It was sabotage by the demons. They're tearing down walls to try to ambush you. They were the ones who destroyed the bridges, because what do they care about the acid? They even shut off the lights in the final room, since they can see just fine, but you can't. Heck, of course all those secret items are inaccessible, because they know how much you need them. If anyone's gotten this far, then they pose a true threat. And thus, they have to be taken out. What used to be random encounters has now turned into a hunt. A hunt for you. Is it any wonder that this is the point of the episode where the music changes from energetic tracks to something that sounds haunted? Like, it's finally setting in for old DoomGuy that there's no happy end to any of this. The base belongs to the demons now. Everything truly is doomed. But why such a coordinated attack here of all places? Well, we can answer that by taking a look at the map. As you can see, the level is divided into 4 sections that are all connected by a structure in the middle. There's the starting area, the yellow door room, the dark hole at the end, and the computer station. However, notice how the whole facility is sitting right on the edge between the 2 craters, with 2 buildings on either side. You obviously entered via the building that's in the first crater. But you can't immediately access the rooms located in the second crater. Those are locked off with steel doors that require both a key and switch to open. Therefore, we can assume that the second crater is under high security, and the UAC don't want just about anyone being able to wander into it. Which would definitely explain why the demons targeted this place. It serves as a direct connection to the most important part of the Phobos base. And that's precisely where you're headed next, starting with Central Processing. Now, the name could be a reference to one of 2 things. Either this is the main facility for processing nuclear waste, as seen by the copious amounts of waste pits, or this is the central processing unit for the Phobos base, indicated by the several computers. If you ask me, it's probably both. Computing does produce waste after all, which you can tell by all the barrels everywhere. Personally, I believe that much of the green sludge we see in this level is just a cooling agent. It gets stored in the 4 giant vats off to the side and then gets pumped to the computer stations. Afterwards, the waste is redirected into the basins where it gets later processed. Other than that, this map is fairly uneventful, though it follows the trend of the previous one. There's no more corpses, but plenty more hellish objects and even more ambushes. These are all things that will only get worse from this point on, as the second crater is completely overtaken by demons. Let's take a look at the map. Just like Nuclear Plant and Toxin Refinery, most of the rooms are hidden on the inside. These pipes at the top could be the giant vats for cooling liquid, however. On the left side are landing pads, which would be this area near the exit. I guess DoomGuy is still hoping to find at least an escape pod, but even if you step outside, there's nothing there. Therefore, he's again forced to leave on foot to go to Computer Station, the penultimate level. This place is where most, if not all, projects for the UAC are being worked on. It's certainly big enough for it anyway. But then, why is it so small on the map screen? Well, the manual explains that the UAC are conducting secret experiments. Therefore, most of the facility is actually located inside the crater's wall, safely hidden away. There's only one outdoor area, which would be what's visible on the map. The whole place is even right below the military base, who are the UAC's biggest supplier. So if anything goes wrong, they can send in soldiers right away. Or they would have, but we'll get to that in a bit. What are the experiments though? Well, one of them seems to be this chainsaw, which requires you to hit a hidden switch to reveal it. Hold on, chainsaw? That is the big invention? You're right, it makes no sense. Unless it used to be the BFG 9000, which would definitely warrant so much security. However, the demons realized how dangerous such a weapon would be in your hands, so they destroyed or took it elsewhere. And to prevent you from getting suspicious, they simply replaced it with a lesser weapon, almost as a joke. I wouldn't be surprised if many of the other inventions include the plasma rifle, rocket launcher, and berserk. In that case, they're probably missing because they were brought to the demon's base. According to the manual, the two bases are connected by teleporters so they can transfer equipment. Other than that, there's not much more to say, so let's head into Military Base. This level might be accessed from the third one, however, it's located all the way in the other crater. This means that DoomGuy reached this place via tram a la Doom 3. This is where the Marines eat, sleep, and spend their days. However, while there's a couple roaming zombies, these numbers seem awfully small. So, despite the lack of resistance in the nearby facilities, is it possible that most of them managed to fight back? I mean, they're soldiers with direct access to guns. There's even a cage with imps inside, which implies they managed to capture some of the demons before they could cause more harm. But they couldn't have all been possessed, so where are the corpses? Well, there's an abundance of pinkies around, and pinkies love to eat. You get the idea. This would also explain why the map is so empty, because it's been ransacked. The remaining soldiers took whatever equipment they could get before dying a horrible death. You can even see this in the storage room in the upper right corner, which is a bit very empty. The only items left are those out of reach, because those couldn't be grabbed in time. Which kinda sucks for DoomGuy if he came all this way to resupply. It's also noteworthy that a struggle did take place here, as much of the map is destroyed. The floor in the area with the imps on pillars definitely collapsed into the sewage below, while the exit room is split in half. Even the quote sewers below were likely created by a massive explosion before getting flooded. On top of that, the demons have begun adding even more of their candelabras and even a couple torches. As I talked about in the other video, I theorized that the demons came to the human world to expand their territory, and this is another example of that. It's their base now. We can even find another pentagram, though this time a much larger one with candles and offerings. It even teleports in enemies this time, and not too few. Just like in Phobos Lab, this suggests a coordinated attack. Which makes a lot of sense, as a military base would pose the biggest threat to the invasion. The map view of the level doesn't tell us much, except for this pillar going down into Computer Station. I think this is for a cargo lift that's activated by the exit switch. DoomGuy's plan was likely to travel here, stock up on weapons and ammo, and skip half the levels by traveling to the second to last one. Unfortunately, due to the damage in the exit room, the lift is out of commission. Meaning he's forced to travel all the way back to the first crater. Poor guy. But he does eventually arrive at the end, which is Phobos Anomaly, the final destination, both literally and figuratively. It seems like the start was originally a storage hole where they kept a lot of waste barrels and supplies. The same goes for the next area, except that much of the ammo was already taken by previous soldiers. But something's wrong. Is it the torches around you? Or maybe that unnecessarily long tunnel? Or that lift with its bright walls taking you up to a star-shaped platform? What kind of space base is this? Well, who said it was? Look at what you're walking on. It's red, burning ash. The ceiling, covered in impossibly flowing acid. The outside isn't much better. Up until this point, the surface of Phobos has been this smooth brown rock. But this looks more like ash. Maybe the auto map has an answer. Wait a second, why are none of these walls showing up? Oh no, that's not a star, that's a pentagram. You're not on Phobos anymore, you've already stepped into hell. That also explains why the level looks so tiny on the map screen. The other half isn't even in this dimension. That quote lift you took? It was actually a portal to this part of the demon's realm. I mean, this was the original intention as stated in the Doom Bible. There's also an earlier version of this map which makes the portal connection even more obvious. And after slaughtering the two Bruiser brothers, the magic can't keep up the facade anymore, and it all comes crumbling down. Now the only thing left is to take that ominous teleporter to your own doom. There never was a way you were going to make it out alive. The demons knew about you and they ambushed you right as you stepped through. Of course you don't go to heaven after you die, because what goes to hell stays in hell. And that's exactly where your next stop is. But that's a topic for the next video. For now, I genuinely love to hear what you thought about my ideas and what your own theories are. There's not much to really talk about in regards to episode 1, but I still had a lot of fun and I hope you did too. I also hope that you're looking forward to the next 2 episodes since I've got a lot to say about them. So subscribe for that. And if you've liked the video, then don't forget to let me know and maybe even support me directly via Patreon. Anything is appreciated. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.